Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile video. Today I wanted to make a response video actually to a video that caught my eye in my notification bar because, as a true supporter of other PoE content creators, you make sure you get notified when they upload content, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and click that little bell to get notified when I upload videos. And the specific video I'm talking about is ItsYoji's What Will Get Nerfed in 3.13, 5 predictions for the upcoming expansion. Now, I was going in with a certain expectation of what he was going to say, but I have to agree with some of it, but there's a few things I wanted to note as well and bring into light for the community, and that's what this video will be about. I'm not going to play his video across the this video, obviously. I'll link it in the description to his video if you guys want to check it out. I think that he has some really good points to bring up to the attention, but I have a few more. So basically, the first a little bit of a note, these are only predictions. It's not what's going to be nerfed, it's what both me and ItsYoji think is going to be nerfed, and what I think and what he thinks. So make sure you keep that in mind. But before I'm going to talk about this, I wanted to mention a few things. And the few things I want to mention is that GHAZZY has first off had an entire extra month of fine-tuning things for the upcoming 3.13, which they haven't had in the past. They have also announced officially that they are going to have much smaller patch notes and only nerf fewer things to have better quality for the cycle of the 3-month cycles of leagues. Now, with that in mind, I think that they will only fine-tune or properly go into changing things that are absolutely needing a nerf, and they will only fine-tune very few things and fine-tune them with a much smaller percent than they've done in the past. Previously, there's been a lot of jokes about GHAZZY nerfing something, and when they fine-tune or balance something with a couple of percent, instead of doing that, they're completely destroying the ability. I think that we'll see a lot less of these things happening, and that any nerfs happening are either abusive things being fine-tuned or overkill abilities are being brought down to a more reasonable level, whereas everything else is being either untouched or barely touched, right? That's basically my list of things. Let me just check what he mentioned first. Call of Steel, right? And what ItsYoji is mentioning with Call of Steel is actually more than fair, and I think that this kind of ability goes into the category of something that is abused in a way I don't think it was intentional. So for those of you who don't understand, the Call of Steel ability is that when you use any of the steel abilities, the splitting or shattering steel abilities, you get the Call of Steel ability, which basically soaks up the impales on the enemies and does that damage immediately to the enemies. Now, for an ability like ItsYoji is mentioning, for the Call of Steel and Shattering Steel, which applies them quickly, low quantity of damage applied impale stacks and then explode them, Call of Steel makes sense. The way this is abused in the current state of the game is that you apply massive damage approach of impale through the big hitting abilities, and then you pretty much one-shot bosses by doing Call of Steel with these impale stacks, by stacking them up with these big boy abilities. And I think that the prediction that ItsYoji brought in was that they would limit the Call of Steel ability to only work on impales applied through the steel abilities, being shattering and lancing steel, for example. And I think that's a fair take. And this would be categorized, in my opinion, more as a balance of the ability to only affect what it was supposed to be affecting, rather than allowing it to continuously be abused in the form of using it with the bigger hitting abilities. So in this case, I think that's a fair prediction on a nerf, and I completely agree with this statement entirely. Now, I'm not so sure they're going to be touching Blade Vortex that much. We can take a look at the PoE Ninja, for example. The most played builds in Flashback Solo Self-Found, for example, is Blade Blast, Ray Spectre, Blade Vortex, and Toxic Rain, whereas most people are using both Blade Blast and Blade Vortex as poison builds. Very easily spotted here. A lot of this purple colors you see here is chaos damage. A lot of these low numbers are basically in the form of them actually going in with poison. Most of these are assassin, which are poison scaled. There are a couple of others that are not. For example, this one has lightning. I'm pretty sure this is going to be an Archmage. Yeah, this is definitely an Archmage build. As you can see here, Archmage unleashed Blade Vortex. So there are a couple of other variants that works very well with Blade Vortex. I don't think they're going to nerf BV personally. If they do, it would only be with a couple of percent, if they even touch it at all. I think that there will, instead of looking at both Blade Vortex as a nerf, I think they're looking at both Blade Vortex and Blade Blast, and we can look at it more actively. Well, maybe not active, but more higher player-based league, which will be high softcore or flashback softcore trade leagues. And as you can see here, there we have Carrion Golem, Spark, Blade Vortex again, and then EK, Ray Spectre. A lot of this is because of aura stacking, which we'll get to. And then we have Cyclone and Blade Vortex. So if you look at, Evolved Blade Vortex. But if you look at Blade Vortex, you can see that these builds are doing the Fire BV, which was very popular to be played both as a Shadow as well as a Chieftain. So a lot of these builds are actually Fire-based, and this is the only reason why I think that Blade Vortex might be touched rather than just focusing on Poison. But it's also one of those builds that requires quite a lot of investment, which I think is very good for the community. I think it's healthy that there are endgame builds that people can chase towards. I don't personally think the Blade Vortex is super overpowered, personally. I think it's a great ability, but that's about it. So we'll see how the prediction goes. And to continue this video as a response, we're going to go through the abilities that Joji was mentioning, and then I'll talk about my own. So later, he is talking about the Spectres, specifically Syndicate Operatives. Syndicate Operatives, in mind, they are bugged. I think that's very important to note, that Ray Spectres have been nerfed, and I think that they have touched upon specific Spectres, like they completely gutted Redemption Sentries between 3.12 and 3.13. 3.11 to 3.12, and we also have to keep in mind that in 3.13 we're not just getting Heist as core mechanic, we're also getting Harvest back in a more balanced state. Hopefully, we'll see how that goes. Redemption Sentries is, despite the nerf, still a very, very good Spectre. That what makes Syndicate Operatives so broken is that they're actually bugged. There's a lot of issues with them, but when they are when they are placed with a small distance between the targets and where they are, they don't attack with their melee swings doing no damage. They are actually shooting out this insane approach of a spell that triggers an attack, which is scalable with Spell Echo, but they don't get the Echo effect. Instead, they get all the cast speed, allowing them to massively increase their damage approach. Is just absolutely brutal. I think that they will give the Syndicate Operatives the same treatment Redemption Sentries were, because Syndicate Operatives are arguably better than Redemption Sentries were pre-nerf. So I think that they're going to touch Syndicate Operatives, and this again follows the same category as Call of Steel, where they're, instead of nerfing the Spectre gem or the Call of Steel gems, or ability, they are instead going to look into these things because they are utterly broken. Now, Spectres can be absolutely great no matter what you do, but I think they will go through and nerf and at least balance the things that are absolutely broken, and Syndicate Operatives are broken just as much as Call of Steel is absolutely broken. So I think they're going to attend to these things and balance them properly, whereas Call of Steel can be fixed in the way Joji was suggesting. We're making it limited to the Steel abilities, whereas Spectre Gems, I don't think they should touch the Spectre Gem. I hope that they will only balance or fix the bugs around Syndicate Operatives to tone them down a bit. So that's basically my prediction on the Spectres. The next ability that Joji is talking about, Carrion Golems, and I don't really agree with this. This is one of the things I disagree with completely. I think that Golem builds in general has always been very good, but they have always required a lot of currency because they require these very specific gems to get going. And I think that's, again, one of those cases where a type of archetype build is achievable by having a goal to work towards, is healthy for the community. But then again, another thing to mention with these are two things. One, it is one of the most played builds in the leagues, like Heist, in the Heist Trade League. Carrion Golems is topping. You can look at Flashback Trade League, pretty much sure there's going to be Carrion Golems up at the top somewhere. Yes, there is. A bit more balanced though, but then again, it's only a 3-week league, not that many people playing, but it's also in the top there. So if we look at the Heist League, which has been on for a while now, we can look at the Carrion Golems through PoE Ninja. Obviously, this doesn't cover everything. It just covers the highest level of players. You can see that there's a lot of people playing these. They're going with the Elementalist or Necromancer for it. So if we take a look at a couple of these builds, you can see that these builds are just stacking up with these jewels, which is required, but they're going low life with it. It's an expensive build to go, and they are going in with a lot of auras. So if you look at the way they're doing, they're stacking Renewal and Rotten Claws, and then they have aura effects to get their resistances up to ridiculous numbers as well. And this goes in with the aura stacking. I personally don't really have a problem with the way people are pushing Golem builds. I think it's really healthy. However, what I do wanted to mention as to keep up with this video being a response to Joji's video, he is talking about them being overpowered when it comes to AFK and Blight content. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because if you were not using Golems for AFK and Blights, you can very easily go with melee Spectres, and there's quite a few melee Spectres that you can use that will do the exact same thing as the Golems. It's just that you want to go with the aura stacking approach with it, so that you can utilize it to the point where you get the defensive stats. Because the way AFK and Blight content means is that you need to make sure that you will always survive, right? And one of the best ways to do this is to have a melee aggressive minion that will run to the enemies to make sure you don't have a problem with proximity shields, and that you can survive any hits taken. Now, the difference between Golems and Spectres is that you don't get the defensive Spectres like Undying Evangelist, Thay of Tool, for example, to give you that extra Snowstorm defense, which gives you a damage reduction as well as 20% dodge to attacks and spells. However, you can easily get 90% resistances and use Redemption Knights as a melee Spectre to do the exact same thing. It's just a slightly different approach in the design of the build. So Spectre builds can absolutely AFK Blight content if you so wish to. It's just a slightly different take to it. And that there's so many different melee Spectres you can use that would be able to achieve this goal. So I don't think that the Golem build should be nerfed based off Blight content personally. If anything, it has more to do with aura stacking. But again, I think it's healthy, because the way these builds requires a lot of investment is good for the community to achieve such a goal. So I don't think that they should be nerfed, and if they do touch them, they should only be very small numbers. And to again further my reasoning behind this is that they're melee Spectres. They're terrible, or melee minions when it comes to Golems that are used for this. They are terrible at clear speed. They're great for AFK and Blights. They're great for bosses, like absolutely insane. You can design them to be very good at defense, but the clear speed is god-awful. Now, some people would, I'm assuming, argue for them to be okay. But if you compare them to any ranged golem setup like Flame Golems or ranged Spectres, suddenly you have a vastly superior build for the sake of clear speed. So I'm not sure if they are warranting, if you should be nerfing them based off the fact that they're really good at some parts where they're terrible at other things. To me, it's like saying that Self-Cast Vortex should be super nerfed because it's super good at killing bosses, but it's terrible for clearing, which the solution nowadays is that we use a spell slinging version to the clearing, but then it would hurt the single target approach to it. The other approach Joji is talking about, and obviously the big boy last one, which I completely agree with to some degree, and I have a few things to talk about, it's the aura stacking. Now, this is something that has been brought up quite a few times. In 3.11, I brought a Spectre build up thanks to Harvest Crafting to do 517 million Shaper DPS thanks to Harvest Crafting. Then we got the nerf on the Redemption Sentries. Sorry, yeah, the Redemption Sentries, yes, got nerfed pretty heavily. Now that's 500 million Shaper DPS, which is crazy, right? We had one Spectre insta-facing A8 series, for example, with just one Spectre. It was absolutely disgusting. However, you can achieve this with aura stacking. I saw a post on Reddit earlier last week, I think, where someone made actually another type of Spectre do that same DPS I did in Harvest by just aura stacking. And I think that aura stacking, honestly, I don't think they should be nerfing it. And I don't think they will. If they even do, it will only be very minor things. I know some people have been telling me that, oh, they could just limit some of these cluster jewels to be limited to one. Like, you can only have one Voices cluster and whatnot. But what I think is really good, like I mentioned a few times in this video, is that there is a huge gap between getting a couple of aura stacked versus someone that is invested in full-out clusters, or Voices clusters with low quantity of passives doing nothing to stack these jewels. and they cost hundreds upon hundreds of exalteds. And if you want to go crazy, you can go into 1 or 2, even more thousands of exalteds to achieve this, which gives the players that are playing the game or a league more than just a couple of weeks or more than just a month or two, to give them that end game goal to strive towards, something to really aim for. This is my goal this league. I want to make this character be the best R stacking ever and just stack these things. I think it's healthy that we have these things. In the past, it's been harder for the majority of the community to make a lot of currency, and the chase item, so to say, has literally been, well, way back in the day, it was ItsYoji Acuity and Chevron's Wrappings. Those were the big chase items, because then you were allowed to go low life, and we stacked auras per se back then as well to some degree, with the snapshotting, if you want to go back even further. Nowadays, it has been chasing a headhunter. Right? And Headhunter has been the big chase items. And that's changed into around, let's say, between 70 and 120x has been the to-go-to price for Headhunters for quite a few leagues now. However, with aura stacking being another chase thing to go for, and the community being bigger and wider and, you know, fatter, we've come to a point where there's so many content creators providing information to the community to make currency. There's new strategies to farming. Delirium farming Headhunters, for example, is a very effective way to make currency, profit crafting and whatnot. And with these things in mind, people are no longer seeing, well, the people that play the most don't really see Headhunter as a chase item. Headhunter is, well, that's just around 100x for a lot of people nowadays, which was never the case back in the days where 100x was a shitload of currency, right? So now I think it's really healthy that we have this mega expensive endgame goal for those players to actually strive towards going for an aura stacker that's going to cost you several hundred exalteds. It's not that many people that are able to do this, but I think it's very healthy for the community to have one of those big things to strive towards. And I think that it was healthy to get rid of the bugged approach where they fine-tuned it so it wouldn't break the game where people stood AFK and storms and whatnot very easily. I think it's very healthy that they're doing this, and I'm very happy to see them not nerf aura stacking for that purpose alone. But again, in the start of this video, I did mention how GHAZZY have said that they're not going to nerf things very much. They're going to just fine-tune minor numbers and have smaller patch notes in the future. Thank God for that, because we're going to read them on the 13th of January, boys. I think it's really good to see these things happening, and I'm looking forward to see how they're going to do it. So besides the stuffs brought up to our ears and eyes thanks to ItsYoji, I actually think that they're going to be touching upon Blade Vortex and Blade Blast for the reason of Poison, and I think Poison will be nerfed to some degree. How they'll nerf that I'm not really sure, because right now Blade Blast is one of the most played builds in solo self-found states and the league events. I think it was the most played build during the Mayhem. I think it was the most played during the flashback during the early first couple of days, because it was kind of that and the Call of Steel abusing. And I think that the reason for this is obviously because of the speed applied and allowed for us to go through with Poison, and this includes Plague Bearer. So when I say Poison being targeted for nerfs, in my opinion, or predicting that to be nerfed, is that the Poison itself, the archetype, can be combined with so many things. You can do it with fast-hitting approaches to stack up Poison for Plague Bearer. You can do it with Blade Vortex. You can do it with the Blade Fall into Blade Blast. There's so many different ways that you can achieve this massive amount of power, which skyrockets clear speed, and is also because of the infinite stacking, well, infinite-ish based time duration on the Poison, of course, can actually destroy pretty much any boss, or actually any boss in the game, very effectively. I think they're going to be looking into some sort of nerfs there. I think it's fine for the early stage of the game, but whereas late game, they might be toning that down a little bit. But again, I'm not expecting any big nerfs to it. That's basically what I have to say with my predictions towards the 3.13. I'm very hyped to see what will happen with both Heist and Harvest going core. And yeah, good video, Joji. It was actually really nice to watch this, and made me do a response video. So big shout out to Joji. There's a link in the description to his video, and make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more content. And let me know in the comments below what you guys think will be nerfed in the upcoming league. Until next time, boys, stay safe, keep rocking.